So this module is the SAS Service Provider Edition Series A. In this module, we're going to be covering the FreeRADIUS agent, the SAML agent, and some information about logging. If we take a look at our network diagram that we've been building throughout this series, we will see now we have our last two components that have been added to the network diagram. We can see our new SAML agent server is being added to the diagram, and we have a FreeRADIUS server that's also being added to this diagram. So we're going to cover the details of the FreeRADIUS agent, the FreeRADIUS updater agent, the SAS SAML agent, and then we're going to look at some log file locations for the above agents. Now embedded inside this PowerPoint, we have the documentation from the SAS package. These are the SAS FreeRADIUS agent. So if we just pop this one open, we can see here we have 25 pages on configuring the FreeRADIUS configuration guide. We have one for, excuse me, the updater. And we have a document for the Shibboleth agent. Excuse me. So the first thing, the first thing that we're going to look at is the SAS FreeRADIUS agents. Now the supporting operating system is Red Hat Enterprise 5.9 x64 as a minimum, and the components that are included in the FreeRADIUS solution is the FreeRADIUS agent, the FreeRADIUS server, and the FreeRADIUS updater. Now the FreeRADIUS agent is an authentication agent that enables Radius clients to communicate with SAS using the Radius protocol. This ensures all authentication attempts made against the server from a valid recognized agent. And to accomplish this, again, we're using our key files that we mentioned previously that have been registered with the SAS service and the agents. The process of the FreeRADIUS agents: in step one, an administrator would add an auth node, in this case for a Juniper SA4000 in SAS. In step two, the FreeRADIUS updater, it pulls in port 5041 TCP the auth node information with FreeRADIUS synchronization and writes it to the clients.com file. So once the auth node has been registered, in step three, the user would initiate a connection to the Juniper and provide the username and their two-factor credentials. Step four, the Juniper sends a Radius request packet to the SAS FreeRADIUS server. In step five, the FreeRADIUS agent passes the authentication to SAS via the token validator on port 80 or 443. Step six, the Radius sends an access accept or perhaps an access reject if the credentials are incorrect, back to the Juniper. And in step seven, a tunnel is established from the user to the Juniper. It's very basic. When we take a look at the update agent, again, this is an agent that allows us to add auth nodes in SAS and have them be automatically populated into the clients.com file without the need to restart the Radius server. Like I mentioned in the PCE, the SAS PCE modules, when you use NPS, anytime you would add an auth node, you would need to restart NPS. So you can imagine from a service provider or a large customer that's using multi-tier, multi-tenancy with multiple nodes is having to restart the Radius server will basically affect the SLA. So if I'm constantly adding an off node and constantly starting radius and stopping radius, effectively my SLA, it kind of goes out the window. So with the updater, we're able to add off nodes without interfering with the radius protocol. So the steps on setting up the FreeRADIUS agent, again, we're going to install the updater and the agent. We're going to enable integration with SAS. We're going to configure the agent. We're going to modify some settings with the updater. We're going to modify the SSL config on the SAS server. We're going to enable MS-Chat v2 support, and we're going to enable the radius pass-fail logging. So I want to point out some log directories right away that I feel that are important. So the first one is the updater log. This is a log file that shows the FreeRADIUS updater working. So polling SAS every so often to query if there's any off nodes that have been added, and then updating the clients.com file. We have our radius log, which shows us our pass fails, and we have the actual clients.conf file itself, where we're actually able to see these new off nodes being added. So I've created a short video of this installation of the agent and the updater. Again, they're available inside the package. They're also available online. So let me go ahead and start this agent. Now, this video is quite lengthy, so for time, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to play it at just a little bit quicker speed, just for time. Now, one thing to note, there is a section in the guide which talks about enabling MS-Chat v2. It's just a half a dozen steps. For this short video, again, it is optional. If your customer does require MS-Chat v2, it is necessary to complete those steps. But because of time, I've simply omitted them. And if you do need to see a video with adding those half a dozen steps, let me know. I'd be more than happy to produce one. So this is my Red Hat server. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to run the package, the RPM package. And you can see there's all the components for that. I'm then going to move over to the CryptoCard FreeRADIUS directory, and I'm going to extract the RLM Chalabek auth. I'm then going to move into that directory because I'm going to be copying the RLM Chalabek auth 220.so to the FreeRADIUS lib64 directory. I'm just copying that. I'm then going to change the permission, the file permission. Once I've changed the file permission, I'm now going to move over to the dictionary.freeradius.internal. Sorry. Before I do that, I'm actually going to create a symbolic link between the RLM Chalabek auth.so and the RLM Chalabek auth.so. So now I'm going to move over to where the dictionary.freeradius.internal resides. And I'm going to modify this file. So there's two entries in here that I need to change. Sorry, one entry in here I need to change. And there's a value that needs to be added. So I'm going to search for MS-Chat v2. And we can see here, I need to add a line. So I click on Insert. And I'm going to add the line value auth type Chalabek auth 1035. I'm now going to save this file. And again, I'm now going to copy the Chalavec auth to the modules directory. And again, I'm going to change, once the file has been copied, I'm going to change the file permission for the Chalavec auth file. So I now need to make some changes to the sites-enabled file. So it's a file called default. So I'm going to edit this file. Now I need to go to the auth_log, so I'm going to do a quick search for that. And we can see I'm now going to add some text under the auth_log. I'm going to add Chalavec auth. So there's two entries here that I need to make. One is under auth_log, the other one is under PAM, so I'm going to search for PAM. You'll notice that PAM is already commented out, so I'm going to enter in the following line: auth type Chalavec auth, Chalavec auth. So I'm going to save this file, and I need to go in and edit the CryptoCard FreeRADIUS config file. So I'm going to open up that file. This is a CryptoCard file that's used. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the debug level from 1 till 3 in section 3, and in section 7 I'm going to change the value from 0 to 1, which enables the passing on the IP. I'm going to save that. Now what I need to do is I need to start up the FreeRADIUS server, so I need to do some linking. Now, depending on the version of Linux that you're using, these commands may be slightly different. This linking that I'm using here is specifically for Red Hat 6X, which is Santiago. So I'm linking the libssl.so 1.0.0 to 0.9.8, and I'm also linking the libcrypto.so 1.0.0 to the libcrypto 0.9.8. Once this is completed, I'm going to start the FreeRADIUS daemon in single user mode. So minus uppercase XX, and we'll see that this may take a few minutes, but we can see that our FreeRADIUS server has started for the first time. So I'm going to Control-C that, and I'm going to create a symbolic link from rc.radiusdaemon to etc inetd, sorry, init.d. And then I'm going to start the Radius daemon again. Again, if we're doing this on multiple servers, on primary, secondary, we will need to perform these steps on both the primary and secondary FreeRADIUS, if applicable. So now go over to my SAS server to begin the integration with SAS. So I'm going to log in as my local or domain administrator. I'm going to go to the Systems tab. I'm going to go to the Setup module, and I'm going to click on the FreeRADIUS synchronization link, and I'm going to enable FreeRADIUS synchronization with the radio button. So I log in as my administrator. Under System, under Setup, under FreeRADIUS synchronization, I set this to enable. I click Apply. Now I want to configure the FreeRADIUS agent. So I need to modify the CryptoCard FreeRADIUS config file. So I'm going to go to that directory. and I'm going to edit that file. So I have my debug, my debug level set to 4. In section 7, as before, I have my IP address passing is on. And in section 21, I'm going to change, sorry, in section 16, I'm going to change the localhost value to the value of my SAS server. I'm going to save these settings, and again, anytime I make some changes here to this file, I need to restart my Radius daemon. So at etc init.d, I'm going to restart the FreeRADIUS server. Again, if you are doing a failover, there are some optional settings in the guide for configuring the FreeRADIUS agent in a failover environment. So now I need to modify the FreeRADIUS updater. So I'm going to move to the dynamic update directory. I'm going to edit the SSL config file. Section 6, I'm going to change it again from info to debug. Section 19, I'm going to change the value from 300 to 60. This is the intervals in which the updater checks with SAS to see if any updates. And again, in section 20, I'm going to change the IP address from localhost to the IP address of my SAS server. If I am using a secondary, I would need to update that as well. Again, with making any changes to this file, I will need to restart the FreeRADIUS updater service. And now I can begin the next step, which is on the SAS server, which is under the Black Shield install path FreeRADIUS bin dynamic update config. I need to change some settings in this file as well. So again, setting my debug levels to 4 on section 6, section 7, changing the IP address to the primary SAS server, and on section 21, I need to make some modifications here for where my SAS server is. I save this file, and I also need to restart the Black Shield FreeRADIUS service on my SAS blocks. So like I mentioned, the next step would be to enabling MS Chat. Just for time, I've just skipped over a few of those steps. So we now need to enable the Radius pass-fail logging. So I'm editing the radiusd.conf file. Effectively, I'm turning on the logging from syslog to a file so I can actually see that on the server. And I'm now turning on some logging regarding my pass-fail. So log authentication requests, yes, and log bad passwords, yes, log good password, yes. And again, I need to restart the Radius daemon. So that's pretty much it. What I'm going to excuse me. What I'm going to do is, I think here I'm just modifying some files here, or sorry, some log files. I'm actually going to show you this live now that I have it set up. I'm going to go over here to my FreeRADIUS server, and I'm going to show you the 3 log files that I've got open. So here I've got my Radius log file, which is showing me my authentication. I have my FreeRADIUS updater log file here, and I also have my clients.conf file. So what I'm going to show is first of all, on the SAS server, and we're going to be coming back and checking for an update here. So you'll see that every minute this file here is going to be updated. So this is the updater checking for new auth nodes. And once it checks for an auth node, it's going to then write that information into the clients.conf file. So let me go ahead and see if I can show you this actually working. So I'm going to log in as my operator. So under my virtual server, I'm going to select my account. I'm going to go to the Comms tab. I'm going to go to Auth Nodes. And I'm going to add a Radius auth node. So we can see here we do have an auth node for our agents. As I mentioned in earlier sessions, that all agents need to have an auth node defined. So we can see I have an auth node for the FreeRADIUS agent. I have registered one previously for doing some testing. I have my SAML agent from previous sessions and my Windows Logon agent from previous sessions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add one, and I'm just going to call it a web radius node, and give it 220. I'm going to generate my shared secret. And what's going to happen here is I'm going to save this in SAS and quickly move over to the FreeRADIUS box, and hopefully we can see the data being written and we can see the clients.conf file being updated. So we go ahead, click Save, and if we quickly go over here, we're waiting for the FreeRADIUS updater log file to poll SAS looking for any changes. So we can see here that we've written into the clients.conf file, and we can see here in our clients.conf file, we can actually see this data has now been written. So that's the updater doing its job. Just to show you some authentication, so this is my Radius log. If I move over to one of my other servers that we use, so my Active Directory, we can see here I've got a test client where I'm sending packets to the FreeRADIUS box with my shared secret on UDP port 1812, and I've got my user, my username. In this case, I'm using a static password for testing. I'm going to reset my counter, and I'm going to just send over a couple of hundred packets, authentication requests to that server. And we can see here I've got authentication activity happening. And if we go back over to my FreeRADIUS box, we can see the activity of my users being authenticated. And if I move over to my SAS box and I go to my Snapshots tab, we can see this authentication activity is being updated. And better yet, if I take a look at my metrics, we can see here these metrics are increasing. Let me just stop that. Okay, so that's the FreeRADIUS agent install and the FreeRADIUS updater installation as well. So I showed you a brief little demo again so you could see the updater in action. You could see it writing to the clients.conf file, and you could see some Radius authentication from a Radius client. In this case, I was using a tool which would allow me to send Radius packets to the FreeRADIUS box and alternatively seeing it updated inside SAS. So the next section we're going to go through is the SAS SAML agents. So it supports 2003, 2008, both standard and R2. We provide you with both 32 and 64-bit architecture. Now for the SAML agent or the SAS SAML agent to work, we need to have Shibboleth set up and it needs to be configured. So there are some prerequisites or additional software that needs to be installed. So this can't be installed on the same box as SAS simply because SAS is using .NET framework and IIS, where this version of Shibboleth is using Java as the framework and it's using Apache as the web service. So the agent, the SAS Shibboleth agent is again adding security to a shibboleth protected resource by enforcing two-factor authentication. So when a user tries to access the protected service provider, the service provider intercepts the request and redirects the user to the SAS shibboleth agent, which acts as the identity provider, or the IDP. The IDP collects the user's credentials and passes them on to SAS for authentication. SAS evaluates the credential and returns an accept or reject decision to the IDP. IDP creates an access or reject response assertion for the service provider and returns their assertion returns the access response assertion, also carries it with some information attributes to SAS, which can be configured to be released for the service provider. So effectively in step one, the user tries to authenticate to a service provider cloud service. Step two, the logon request is redirected to the IDP. Step three, the user's credentials are passed to SAS. Step four, based on the credentials being correct or not, you get an access or reject. And in step five, the access or reject response assertion plus additional attributes specific to the service provider as configured to SAS are sent back to the service provider. So to get this agent up and running, again, most customers that I've dealt with on the PS side and even before when I was working on the service provider team, they don't have any of the underlying infrastructure set up for SAML. So we needed to do some work in order to do that. So I'm going to show you some steps here. First thing is we're going to install the Java runtime environment. We're going to install Apache. We're going to install Shibboleth, the IDP. We're going to install the SAS SAML agent. We're going to configure the SAS Shibboleth agent. We're going to configure the agent within the manager. We're going to resynchronize the Shibboleth agent settings in SAS. We're going to move our certificate from the Shibboleth server to the SAS server. We're going to add an auth node, and we're going to update some settings within SAS itself. So before I show the video, I'm just going to review the 4 tabs that we have in the agent. And as you'll see, all of our agents are very similar. We have policy, we have comms, we have logging, and we have localization. So under policy, we can turn on or turn off the agents. We have our entity ID, we have our IP, our ports, we have our directories for our Shibboleth server, we have our Java key store, we have our directories for our Apache and our ports, and we have our certificate key store for Apache and our password for that private key store. Under communications, this is where we would point it to our SAS box. So if this was using SSL, I would need to flag SSL. If I had a failover server, I would add the failover server as well. This is my IDP resource directory and my agent encryption key file. We have our logging levels, and we have our logging location, and we also have our localization. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you these videos, or well, I've got 2 videos here, one for basically standing up SAML, including the agent, and then I have a short video on basically logging in to Office 365 using SAML. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to install the Java runtime environment. So it's a very basic install. I'm just going to run the installer as it is and complete with the default settings with this Java JDK. And what I'm going to do, just again for time, I'm going to increase the speed on this just so we can go through some of these settings. So once the Java JDK is installed, we need to change our environmental variables, and we need to perform a reboot. So we add our Java _home, and we point it to where the JDK is located. We're then going to do a reboot, so I'm not going to take you through the reboot. I'm going to continue with the next step, which is installing Apache. So I need to change it from normal to a custom, and I need to make sure I have my host manager. So everything except examples will suffice here for Tomcat. So under custom, I do need my server startup, and I do need the rest of these settings to be selected. I'm going to change my connector port from 8080 to port 80, and I'm going to add a administrator login username and password. So I'm going to use administrator and my password. I choose my install folder. Sorry, I choose where my Java JDK has been installed. So I'm going to point it to my JDK folder. And then choose where Apache is going to be installed. And I complete that installation. So I need to now open up the monitor, the Tomcat monitor, because what I need to do is I need to change the startup type from manual to automatic, and I need to start the service. So you can see here on my taskbar, I have it started. So the startup type needs to be changed from manual to automatic, and I can go ahead and I can start my Apache server. So I now need to extract the shibboleth IDP, and because of long file names, I'm actually going to extract it into a folder called S, simply because there is a known error because it is a very long file name that you will receive if you don't start it from a short directory name. So I'm going to install this by running the install.bat, and I'm going to follow the steps that are included in the guide for configuring shibboleth. So I choose that it's opt shibboleth is my shibboleth IDP is my directory. I'm going to enter in this case, the IP address. This is an example, so usually you'd be at FQDN, but I'm going to enter in my IP address of my shibboleth server, and I've now completed that section. One of the files that's included inside of the package for installing shibboleth is the Tomcat 6 DTA SSL file. So we need to move that file into the opt shibboleth IDP lib endorse directory. So I'm going to take this file, I'm going to move it over to where my shibboleth is installed under opt shibboleth under lib under endorsed, paste that in, and then I'm going to copy the endorsed folder, the entire folder. I'm going to copy this over to my Apache server. So under C program files, Apache, Tomcat, I'm going to paste in this file. Again, because I've made changes here, I need to restart or start my Apache server. And now I'm going to just test just to make sure that my Apache server is up and running. So I'm just going to go to localhost, and we can see that it looks like it's working properly. So go ahead and stop that agent. Now I'm going to generate my Java key store. So under program files, Java JDK bin, I'm actually going to find my key tool. And we have a file inside the package which allows you to generate the key store. So I'm going to run this file. I'm going to enter in the password that's used. And there's going to be a series of questions that I'm going to enter in information regarding my certificate, my key store. Once complete, I'm then going to copy my newly created Java key store from the bin directory over to my Tomcat directory. So there's my Java key store. I'm going to now copy that file over to my Tomcat conf directory. So now that once that's done, I can now do the Black Shield ID agent for Shibboleth. So I can go ahead and install this file. Once installed, so we have a guide here for it as well. Once installed, we're going to start it, all programs, SafeNet agent, Shibboleth configuration tool, and I'm going to begin the configuration of this tool. So I tell it where the IDP IP address is. So in this case, 192.168.10.111. I'm going to use the external port of 443. I'm going to put my debugging for my Java key store into debug mode. I've got my Tomcat directories. I've got my ports that are being used, my certificate locations. This is the IP address of where my SAS server is. I've got my IDP resource directory and my key file. So there's our logging folder where we can adjust our logging and our localization as well. So I'm now going to start this agent or enable this agent. Again, I'm going to test, so stop and start Apache after I've made these changes. And I'm going to verify that this is working properly by opening up 127.0.0.1. I'm going to select Manager App on the right-hand side, and I'm going to enter in my password. And I should see that in the application list that the IDP is running and set to true. So we can see here under Applications, the application path is IDP, that it's the CryptoCard identity provider, and it's set to true. So once this is complete, we now need to move the Shibboleth certificate. So we need to move it from opt Shibboleth IDP credentials. We need to move it over to our SAS server, and I've created a directory called cert under Program Files, Black Shield, Black Shield Site Console. Under cert, I've created that directory for that certificate file. So now I can begin my SAS configuration. So I'm going to log into SAS as a local or domain administrator to reach the system level. Under the Setup tab, under Communications, I'm going to see the Shibboleth agent settings. And I'm going to update the primary Shibboleth INI management URL and the primary Shibboleth relying party management URL. So under here, we can see I've added the IP address of my Shibboleth server, and I'm going to resync these settings, and it should come back and tell me that it's been successful with the remote agent. I then need to add an auth node, again for the Shibboleth agent. So we can see here is our auth node that has been added for SAML. So index 4 is the auth node where my Shibboleth agent or my SAS Shibboleth agent has been installed. So the final step is some cosmetics. So I need to log in as an operator. Under Administration, under Customize References, I have my SAML settings. And these are the entity ID, the entity provider URLs, the sign-in URLs, the redirect URLs, and where my certificate is being placed. I click apply. And now I can go and I can test the status of my Shibboleth server. So if I go back over to my Shibboleth box, I should be able to go to HTTPS 127.0.0.1/IDP profile status, accept the certificate, and I should see that my status is now okay. That's a very basic setup of SAML and also the SAML agent. If we take a look, I added this video in here. Some of you may have seen this before, but it's a very short video, just basically showing a demonstration of Office 365. There's my landing page. So I arrive at this page, I put in my username, I put in my OTP, and so my password, and it's going to redirect me over to a SAS page. So I can choose here which signing organization. And I get prompted for my SafeNet username and my OTP. And with this being correct, I'm using a grid token, so I type in my pattern. And with this being correct, an assertion will be sent over to Office 365 and log me in. So we'll take a look, just to wrap up this session, we'll take a look at where some of the log files are located. When adding these agents, I find that these agents are more for service providers. Now, I do have some customers in the past that are not service providers, and they've installed pretty much the SAS PCE environment. So we've got customers running PCE with NPS and Shibboleth, and we've got customers running PCE with FreeRADIUS, but not Shibboleth. I kind of feel that customers that are adding FreeRADIUS and customers that are running SAML are primarily more service providers than customers. Now, I'm sure this dynamic will change over time because more and more applications are supporting not only Radius but also SAML. So we'll probably see more on-prem PCE customers wanting to install SAML as well as Radius. So under our SAS core server, we have our SAS logging under program files, CryptoCard, Black Shield ID log. Our LDAP syncing, again from before, we have our log directory. We have our host, logging host under the SAS UI. The LDAP sync agent, program files, CryptoCard, Black Shield ID, LDAP sync. In the newer version, it's actually /log. For our SAML server, we have our Shibboleth errors will appear in the opt Shibboleth IDP logs, IDP process.log. The public certificate error or general Tomcat errors will be found under program files, Apache Tomcat 7 logs, and the Black Shield Shibboleth agent log can be found under program files, CryptoCard, Black Shield Shibboleth /log. Under FreeRADIUS, we have our Radius logging, which is opt FreeRADIUS server, the version, /var/log/radius. Our updater is var log CryptoCard, and our SAS core logging for SMS is under SMS web service /log. And that concludes this section here. What I'd like to do is open up to any questions. Looks like we have a question here from Aman. What did it say? If I've downloaded the latest version of the Radius Agents and Updater, do I need the minimum of Linux 5.9 or can I install on 5.7? Again, these are the recommended installer packages. We do also support not only Red Hat but SUSE. So as long as the libraries are there, we shouldn't have any problem installing it on a previous version or on a newer version. And the steps, would be the same. If you just take a look in the guides, you will see that the steps installing it on a different version of Red Hat and or SUSE is pretty much the same. So yes, Holger, thanks for the update. Officially, we only support Red Hat 5.9. It has been supported and tested, and it will be changed in the next release. So I'm gonna stop recording.